You hear people praising Nkrumah as if he was virtually God.
Right.
And you hear others demonizing Nkrumah as though he was the devil himself. And you ask yourself, how can one person be played this way and that way at the same time? If you look at Kwame Nkrumah, he was not looking at Ghana becoming independent. He was looking more at the black man becoming free. If you say founder, it would be unfair to say Kwame Nkrumah is our founder. Neither would it be unfair to say that the Big Six are our founder. We have a founding president. Nobody can argue with Kwame Nkrumah on that one.
Yeah. Talking about the Big Six, what role did they really play in our independence?
The Big Six were part of the leadership of UGCC. Plain and simple.
Did they play any role in our independence? Were they actively involved in our independence?
Between the time UGCC was set up, which was August 1947, and when Nkrumah parted with them, they were the leaders of the political party fighting. But once Nkrumah's party, CPP, took the shine off and was moving, nothing much was heard of them until we got into the Busia administration. Nkrumah has set Ghana on the path of development. At the time he was overthrown, we had about 7 major hotels in this country. Most of the leaders then, strangely, were some of the leaders that overthrew Nkrumah.
Wow.
And I believe that they hatched the plot whilst they were there.
Right.
Yes. Because it is too much of a coincidence that the same set of leaders that were there ended up being the people that ended up overthrowing Kwame Nkrumah.
There is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. Freedom! Freedom!
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Beyond the Surface. My name is Enoch and I am your host. Happy Independence Day. Now, in the wake of all the arguments on social media, on various traditional media, on the history of our country, some are saying that the country was founded by one man, and that's all we're all taught as we're growing up. And others are saying that no, the nation was built by a collective group of people. We want to know the truth behind all of this. We want to go beyond the surface and know the true history of this country. Who are the people that fought for the independence of this country? And so you want to watch this episode to the end. We'll be running this episode for the next 2 weeks. And so if you've not subscribed, be sure to subscribe and tap the notification button. To do this with me is no other person than Mr. Eric Atasuno. He's a historian and a student of history. He's an author of about 7 books, and we couldn't get any better person to do this than to do him. He has a book on Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and so he has in-depth knowledge about the history of our founder and the history of this nation. So be sure to leave your comments in the comment section. We want to hear from you wherever you are watching us from all over the world. Let us hear from you and put it in the comment section. Welcome again. My name is Enoch and I am your host. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here with us.
Welcome.
Great. I'm sure for those who are seeing you for the first time, they want to know who Mr. Eric Atasuno is.
Well, in plain terms, I'm an engineering practitioner, a civil engineer by profession. Currently, I serve on the Engineering Council Ghana as a board member. I'm a family man married to Gloria with 2 children.
Beautiful.
I'm a student of history. Though not studied history, I love reading. And so I've tried to read as many books as possible by Ghanaians on Ghana, some who have played very active roles in the development of our country.
Right.
And so I'm able to explain a few things as have been written down for us. Thank you.
Now, for an engineer, before we even get into the whole issue, for an engineer, getting into writing a book on our founder, on history.
Yes.
What motivated all of this?
Growing up, we all heard about Nkrumah, and then you hear people praising Nkrumah as if he was virtually God.
Right.
And you hear others demonizing Nkrumah as though he was the devil himself. And you ask yourself, how can one person be played this way and that way at the same time? And so I thought that I needed to read more. So I think after secondary school, I started reading books by people who worked with Nkrumah.
Right.
And I read more than 15 of such.
Right.
Books by Nkrumah himself, more than 16.
Wow.
And then books by other people who observed the Nkrumah regime. And those ones were probably about 20. So I have about 48, 50 books with Nkrumah as the character. And so when I read, depending on whose book you were reading, then you see whether Nkrumah is a demon or is an angel. And when you read all these books, you're able to draw a thin line as to what is the truth. Because in every situation, there's only one truth. And so if somebody writes and says Nkrumah was like this, or Nkrumah was like that, you ask yourself, so what is the truth? And as you read all these books, you're able to put the history of the country into perspective. Recently, there was a book by Dr. Obeda Samoa.
Right.
Not too recent, probably about 8 or so years ago. And that book gives a detailed account of our political history.
Right.
But you have to read it from the mindset of who Dr. Obeda Samoa is. You read another one by Kwame Nahoy. That's a pretty much recent.
Yeah.
He goes back a bit into our history. Kabra Blemi, he has also written a book on the political history of Ghana. When you read all of these books, you're able to draw a certain thin line as to what is the fact and what others set of information they are trying to, or perspective they are trying to bring to bear.
Fantastic. And here on Beyond the Surface, that is the reason for this, to know what is the truth.
Exactly.
Now let's get into Ghana's independence. What made Seat March such a pivotal point for not just for Ghana but for Africa?
Maybe let's roll back
right
a little. 6th March was the day a country called Ghana came to be.
Right.
Before 6th March, there was nothing. There was nothing called Ghana.
Yes.
We had the colony, we had the Northern Territory, we had the Ashanti, and then we had the Volta Protectorate or Transvolta Togoland. Now, these were 4 separate entities. They had nothing to do with one another. It was independence that brought the 4 together to form Ghana.
Right.
And so that is the critical fact we have, that on that day a certain country came to be called Ghana. Anytime we say Gold Coast, people think that the Gold Coast is the same country, Ghana, except that there was a change of name. No.
Fantastic.
Ashanti was like a country. Colony was, so when you say Gold Coast Colony, it was referring to what we know now as Greater Accra, Eastern, Central, Western, that region. That was a colony.
Wow.
Ashanti was different. Northern was different. And then Transvolta Togoland was different. So that is what brought us together as a people, a one monolithic country called Ghana. Now, how does that play into Africa?
Right.
Now, if you look at Kwame Nkrumah, because of his background, when he went to UK initially and then subsequently to US, he worked under very big and influential people.
Yeah.
George Padmore, W.E.B. Du Bois, met a lot of people who later became freedom fighters in their various countries. And all these people played a certain role in shaping him up as a freedom fighter.
Right.
So by the time he came back home, he was not looking at Ghana becoming independent. He was looking more at the black man becoming free. So if you read a lot of his speeches, he kept talking about the black man, the African, and things like that. Because those people, even though they were citizens of particular countries, were looking much more at the black man than just looking at the Ghanaian. So when he started fighting, even before Ghana became independent, he was sheltering some of these freedom fighters.
Okay.
Helping them with ideas, certainly not money, because he didn't have much to give them. Yeah. But he was supporting them in order to go back home so that they could also fight for freedom. Yeah. So once Ghana became free, the first thing he did was to call a conference. And that's when they built what we know as Parliament House. The conference center. That conference center was supposed to host the first independent conference for independent African states. And then he invited all of these freedom fighters as observers to come and be inspired to go and continue fighting.
Right.
Okay. So you could see that was his preoccupation. And so once we gained independence, it had become a certain touch that everybody else was looking up to, that if Ghana has done it, then clearly we can also do so. And so from 57, 58, we had more than 10 countries gaining independence. 1960, several others. Then 63, then 65. By the time he was overthrown, I think about half were independent.
Wow.
So that is the impact of our independence, how the rest of Africa sees Ghana as far as our independence struggle was concerned.
Wow. So our independence more or less created a path for other African countries to be liberated from British colony.
So when Nkrumah said our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent,
Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent.
he meant every word he uttered.
Fantastic.
He in fact, until about 10, 15 years ago, there were, after the hotel, what is now Lancaster Hotel, when you were between that portion and Airport Junction, there were these hostels there. They called them International Students Hostel.
Okay.
That was where the freedom fighters were housed.
Okay.
They gave them Ghana passports. They lived there for free. We gave them money to take care of themselves, and they were trained as to how they would use their intellect and whatever to go back home and fight for independence.
Fantastic.
And so all of those people, Mugabe was here. He taught at Secondary College for a while before he went back to fight for Zimbabwe. All the others, they were all here.
Oh, so most of these African
they were all
leaders that
here.
fought, they were all...
Yes, most of them. It's the first leader for Nigeria. He had taught here before, but he was not oriented by Nkrumah. He was way ahead of Nkrumah. But most of the other ones, yes, Nkrumah had an impact on them.
Wow. That's very, very profound. So it means that Ghana, I mean, since the beginning, we have always been a pace setters.
Yes.
Because through our independence in other African countries.
Yeah.
Then, would you then say that the independence of Ghana, was it by one man or was it by a collective group of people? Because you hear people say that, no, Nkrumah wasn't the only person that founded or got independence from Ghana. There were lots of people, collective people that came together. Well, for you being a student of history, what would you say to that?
Our fight for independence started in the 1940s.
Right.
You had, in fact, it even goes before the 1940s, when they signed the Aborigines Rights Protection Bill by the Fanti Confederacy. That thing expired. Once it expired, they started agitating that we asked you to come. And the 100 years had expired. And so we wanted our independence.
Yeah.
Then we had this UGCC come up. When UGCC was formed, the ultimate aim of UGCC was to have self-rule, which is independence.
Yeah.
But their mindset was that let's play with the white man bit by bit until we're able to overcome them, and then we get our independence. Then along the line, they say, oh, we are too busy. We are busy lawyers. All of them were lawyers.
Right.
Except I think Pa Grant wasn't a lawyer.
Yeah.
And they said, let's get somebody who we will employ as a full-time staff, who act as general secretary. Then Akweje says, oh, when I was in UK, I had this guy I met.
Yeah.
And so let me talk to him. I believe that he would be interested.
Yeah.
He sent a letter, and Nkrumah says, I'll come. Then they sent money to him by his vessel, by ship.
By ship.
Then he came. When he came as general secretary, he started working. Ideologies, they had a clash of ideologies because his ideology was a bit communist, socialist, and these were capitalist kind of people. So there were clashes. So they literally demoted him from there to, as a treasurer organizer. Still, they had issues, so they had to part ways. Once they parted ways, Nkrumah continued.
Yeah.
They were also continuing, except that Nkrumah had taken the shine of UGCC.
Right.
So they organized the first election in 1951. Nkrumah swept everything, and then he was asked to form the government, and then it continued.
Right.
So if you ask me, who are the fathers of our independence? It certainly cannot be one person called Kwame Nkrumah. It will not be fair. We all know that he played a pivotal role, but it cannot be him alone. In fact, when he moved the motion we call it motion of destiny, which was for independence, it was seconded by Buzia, who was the leader of the opposition.
Right.
So it's not one person. But the other truth also is that those that the other side who are opposing Nkrumah being the sole founder, they can also not lay claim to the fact that a certain group were the
Were the
founders.
founders.
It certainly cannot be so. When we had the boycott of goods on 28th February 19, incidentally today is the anniversary.
Wow.
28th February 1948.
Mm-hmm.
Those people were fishermen, they were traders, they were ordinary people.
Yeah.
Unnamed, led by Nikwabna Boni, the Osu Alata Manje.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give them the credit. All of these people played a role. We had the ex-servicemen who believed they had been cheated of their allowances and all. They also marched. 3 of them died. Ajete, Udate, Lamte, and the other one, Atipo. All of these people, because it's these activities that shifted the agitation and caused the Ghanaian to say, no, we want the white man out. We want our independence. So if you are talking about our forebears, those who led independence, we have to put all of these together. Right. UGCC was founded by Pa Grant. He was the financier. He was the chairman. We don't name him. So we have to either put all these people together and say these are the founders, right, or we don't put anybody together and say that, something, Nkrumah is our independence president, founding president. It stays like that. But if you say founder, it would be unfair to say Kwame Nkrumah is our founder. Neither would it be unfair to say that the Big Sis are our founder. We have a founding president. Nobody can argue with Kwame Nkrumah on that one.
Yeah. Talking about the Big Six, what role did they really, really, really play in our independence?
The Big Six were part of the leadership of UGCC, plain and simple.
Did they play any role in our independence? Were they actively involved in our independence?
Between the time UGCC was set up, which was August 1947, and when Nkrumah parted with them, they were the leaders of the political party fighting. But once Nkrumah's party, CPP, took the shine off and was moving, nothing much was heard of them until we got into the Buzia administration. Right. Then you see one of them becoming the ceremonial president, Akufo-Addo, and then some other people. But generally, their role is not much.
So you wouldn't fault anyone that says that the Big Six didn't really play much in our independence?
Question is, were they the Big Six?
Yeah, why the Big Six?
Because if you look at the executive of the UGCC, Pa Grant was one of them, but Pa Grant is not part of the Big Six. So if you are looking at the executive of the UGCC being the Big Six, then the question is, why is Pa Grant not part of it? Right. And if you are looking at people who were arrested as a result of the 1948 riots and the others, when they were arrested and they were being tried by the Watson Commission, all of them indicated that they knew nothing about it. So it's only Nkrumah that ended up indicating that, well, he was part of it. So if they denied it when it mattered most, what basis do you credit them with the outcome of what they denied?
That's true.
It's a question I'm asking.
That's a profound one. Anyway, talking about Nkrumah being, so I mean, it's established he's our founding father, but there are others that helped this whole revolution. Now, for someone who, led this revolution and got us that independence together with other leaders, what influenced the 1996 coup? Why the coup?
So we got our independence 57. By 61, we had started, of course, Ghana was on the path of progress. Yeah. We had everything a young country needed. Ghana was either having it or working our way towards having it. So everything looked fine. Right. People were singing excitedly, work and happiness and all of that. I mean, you could see a nation that was at peace with itself. Then we get to about 64, 63, 4. Then there were economic challenges. Some people believe that these challenges were as a result of the fact that we were over supporting people who were looking for independence.
Other African countries.
Some also thought that we were outpacing the way we ought to develop. We were running too fast.
Too fast, yeah.
Others also believe that because of Nkrumah's ideology, we were being starved of funds by development partners. From what I've read, all of these have a role.
Right.
All of these played a role in the challenges we had. But the reality is that by 1964-5, we had started having economic challenges.
Right.
Even though we're still developing. So if you read books. Sometime in 1965, people have started queuing for provisions, basic provisions, milk, sugar, sardine, and things, even bread. If you read the Parliamentary Hazard, there were MPs that were complaining. And so this is a fact. The other set of facts also is that, yes, we were struggling. We were not being supported by development partners because of maybe the path that our leader had taken. But the other truth also is that people were sabotaging the president. So Kwame Nkrumah had clearly, by 1965, we were a one-party state, modeled after China and Russia. And so clearly, the powers then, the rest of the powers, we're in the Cold War era. So if you are not with Russia, then you are with America and its partners, UK, France, Germany, as one bloc. And so they clearly were trying to starve the government of funds, so they will set it up for failure.
Right.
And so by that time, efforts were being made to get him out. If you read some books, they'll talk about the CIA. The CIA clearly played a role. They tried to find ways of getting Nkrumah out.
Yeah, I mean, not to stop you, to talk about even the CIA, we read somewhere that says that they had informants here within the government of Nkrumah.
Yes.
That also, that was something that was established.
Yes. But the fact of the matter is that every intelligence organization has informants.
Right.
There cannot be an intelligence organization if it doesn't have informants.
Yeah.
And so the job of an intelligence organization is to have informants anyway, in any shape or form.
Right.
And so that one is not an error. But the issue is if you allow yourself to become an informant against your own country, then it's another issue. Recent files released from the CIA or of CIA activities pinpoint some key political people as having been informants. Unfortunately, those people have passed, so it's difficult to know whether indeed they were informants or they are just being accused of being informants. And so I will not dwell too much on that. What I will dwell on is the fact that there were issues in Congo. Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba were very good friends. In fact, Lumumba saw Nkrumah as his political father. And he had issues at home, political instability. That was almost beginning to cost him his government. So quickly, Nkrumah and Lumumba went into a pact, a Ghana-Congo union. So that was supposed to be a union to start up the Union of African States. Now, when they signed up the union, it meant that Nkrumah could go into Congo as if he was the president of Congo.
Yeah.
So they sent in troops to go and support Patrice Lumumba. Unfortunately, their colonial masters, Belgium, also had troops there. And when our troops went there, under the guise of UN peacekeepers, they abandoned their commander-in-chief and they were taking orders from the UN because they were wearing the blue beret.
Yeah.
And so while they were wearing the blue beret, they had to take instructions. Now the soldiers that went, the officers that were leading, thought that they were being played by their country. So you are taking me to go and fight for your political friend, and I can lose my life as a result.
Yeah.
So most of the leaders then, strangely, were some of the leaders that overthrew Nkrumah.
Wow.
And I believe that they hatched the plot whilst they were there.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Because it is too much of a coincidence that the same set of leaders that were there ended up being the people that ended up overthrowing Kwame Nkrumah. So the economy was a big factor. Politics was also another thing. Geopolitics also was one. When I say politics, that's internal. Geopolitics external.
Yeah.
Now, when Kwame Nkrumah took us to the one-party rule in 1964, it made the political opposition, very agitated. Because, a political party exists to come into government.
Right.
So if you become a one-party state, essentially you have locked the door.
Yeah.
And there's no way they would ever come into government. And so they had to, I won't say they had to. The natural thing for them was to find ways of either eliminating the one there or getting themselves in there.
Yeah.
So you see that there were a lot more attacks on the person of Nkrumah, whether it's good or bad, it's another matter. Attacks on the person of Kwame Nkrumah, vilifying him in the media, doing everything possible to get him out.
Yeah. And
so in a way, you say that Nkrumah brought it upon himself. But the other truth also is that if you are the president and at every turn, your mother is attacked, people are attacking your government and do everything, what will you do? You want to do everything else to protect your government.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, which is it the chicken and egg situation? Who is right?
Yeah.
The one who is attacking or the one who is defending himself
Yeah.
against the attacks?
Yeah.
But clearly, these were the
factors.
issues of the day, and maybe Nkrumah miscalculated the extent of vilification or the extent of power that the opposition had, and eventually
Right.
he ended up being the victim.
Yeah.
As per 24 February 1966.
Yeah. Talking about the one party system.
Yes.
Now I've read a narrative that says that was one of the reasons people believe that Nkrumah was a dictator, and so the first dictator
Yes.
of our independence. Do you agree to that assertion?
I think that Nkrumah was too fixated a personality, because we had independence in 1957. By 1958 December, we had started having legislations that were beginning to suppress people.
Right.
Just a year after independence. So clearly it meant that he was a bit too anxious to protect his turf. But I think that every country that has developed, and when I say development, I'm talking about real development, has had a certain leader who has been in office for a very long time.
Yeah.
At that time, Nkrumah was trying to, without saying it, he was pushing us along the line of Lenin and the Chairman Mao of China, who had been in office for a long time, and even Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew.
Yeah, Lee Kuan Yew.
And so he was trying to position himself as that. But there were political leaders in the system before he came, and they would not have none of that. So that was when there was that pull and push thing. They resist, and he was trying to push against that. But on hindsight, I would say that we probably should have given him a bit more time. Because, I mean, every country that has developed, France, Britain, US, all of them had their real development when they were under a certain kind of revolution or a certain kind of one person ruling the space and developing without people interfering with, let's have elections and let's do this and let's do that. When the French had their French Revolution, that's when they developed. When the British, they had their, that's when they developed. US, same.
Right.
China, same. All these countries. But we are sitting here. You elect a government, 1 year honeymoon, 2nd year they are thinking of flag bearer, 3rd year campaign, 4th year election. Then we start another cycle. We'll go around in circles. We'll never arrive.
Interesting. Now, talking about the overthrowing Nkrumah. So some say that overthrowing Nkrumah was a setback for Ghana.
Yes.
Others say it saved Ghana. Historically speaking, which of these two holds more strength?
Both of them are true. I've said earlier that at the time of his overthrow, Nkrumah's overthrow, we were having economic challenges.
Yeah.
So, and then the system was being stifled politically. People could not have enjoyed freedom as they wanted to.
Right.
There was a law that was in place. If you were arrested or if you were detained under PDA, Preventive Detention Act, and you were an MP, you'll be stripped of your MPship.
Wow.
If you were a candidate, you'll be stripped off. So all it took the government to do was to arrest you under that law. Automatically, you are no longer an MP.
Wow.
So there were laws that were not helpful to our development and to the development of our democracy. Yes. But the other thing too is that how were we going to get ourselves off these if you have a government that will not listen? And when governments stay in office for a long time, they have this tendency of not listening. President Kufuor made a comment, I think 3 years ago at an MPP rally, and said that power has a way of making people feel funny. So when you are in office and you are not careful, some of these things begin to eat into your head.
Yeah.
And then you begin to think that you are some Superman, untouchable, all of that.
Yeah.
Those things were existing. If you go and read the books by those who were working with Kwame Nkrumah, if you listen to Kofi Bakun, Kweku Boateng, Reverend Kweku Boateng, and the things he said, Benema, all these people were henchmen, direct henchmen of Kwame Nkrumah, and the things they said immediately after the coup, you could clearly see there was an issue.
Right.
But the other thing also is that Nkrumah has set Ghana on the path of development.
Right.
At the time he was overthrown, we had about 7 major hotels in this country that could match with any hotel anywhere in the world at the time.
Wow.
What is now Lancaster Golden Tulip was one. Kumasi, Lancaster, which was City Hotel, was another. Meridian was another. There were several. Atlantic in Takoradi. There were several of them. These were world-class hotels. Ambassador in Accra. Then there were catering rest houses, one in each regional capitals. So if you are a government officer, you travel, you don't need to go and sleep in a hotel. These were guest houses you go and stay in, and then all of that. We had the Black Star Line. It had more than 20 ships.
Wow.
Yes. Black Star Line. For us, Ghana Airways, we had our own planes going to every international destination. We had where they were repairing dry dock, Tema Shipyard and dry dock, where they were repairing ships. It was the only one in Africa.
Wow.
We had all kinds of factories, more than 60 factories, under the name called GHOC, Ghana Industrial Holding Corporation.
Yeah.
We had everything. We were assembling vehicles, assembling television sets, all in this country. And this was a country in the 1960s. So you couldn't say that we're doing something wrong. No, we were set on the path of development. But you see, development in itself does not guarantee the wholeness of the person unless there are other things put to it. And somehow we faltered on the political angle.
Right.
But in terms of development, Ghana was. And in terms of image, you could not meet as a community of nations. African Union, those days OAU, the UN, the non-aligned ECOWAS. What ECOWAS was not in existence then, though. No, you couldn't have a community of nations meeting and Ghana was not present.
Right.
Because Ghana had become the pinnacle of anything you wanted to see of a developing country.
Yeah.
And so Ghana clearly was on the path. And so the removal of Nkrumah from office sets us back on that tangent.
Yeah.
But in terms of economy, yes, maybe we were struggling. Maybe with a little bit of patience, we probably would have scaled it. But well, every coup maker wants to take advantage of the prevailing circumstances to launch.
Right. Now, talking about coup, there have been a lot of conversation about Kotoka. Now, beyond the whole coup narrative, what role did Kotoka play in all of this?
So Kotoka was one of the generals at the time of the coup. He actually, together with Afrifa, I think it was Lieutenant Colonel Afrifa, and then Halley, he was the IGP.
Okay.
Together they organized the coup. So the coup was not a military coup. It was a military police coup.
Right.
Together.
Okay.
And so when they were done with the coup, ordinarily Kotoka would have been the head of state. But Kotoka was a very quiet, unknown person. I mean, to the general public, to the general Ghanaian. And they thought that they needed a certain face that would add some respect to the new government. So they thought that General Ankara, who had then retired, he had been retired already, I think around 64, 65. He had an extreme level of respect among the military. So let's bring him so that with his face, the soldiers would cool down and then they would listen to him.
Sort of authority.
So they brought him out of retirement to be the head of the military and of the government. And he was the head of the government until some bribery allegations were leveled against him, some Atainzeribe issue from Nigeria. And so the council, NLC, forced him to retire prematurely.
Right.
And then Afrifa then became the head of state. So Kotoka was never a head of state. He was a member of the NLC. And then when there was the attempted coup by those, there were some 2 or 3 young people who attempted the coup, and he was fleeing. And at the prisons of Kotoka, then Accra International Airport, he was shot. And so the government decided that where he fell, where he was shot, a monument should be mounted there. So they mounted a statue of him. And then they decided to name the airport after him. Exactly. As to whether it was good or not, I think that this was a general. He was a member of the NLC, a high-ranking government official. if the airport had been named after him, there's no problem. Maybe if it had been some other monument, maybe Ghanaians would not complain much.
Yeah.
But being the gateway into the country, they thought that. But interestingly enough, just a few days before the coup, the phase 2 of the airport expansion had been inaugurated.
Yeah.
By the same government.
Yeah. Wow. Now, then that means that Kotoka overthrowing Command the National Liberation Council, it wasn't based on, would you say it was based on political ambition, personal ambition? Because Kotoka himself, at the end of this entire coup, wasn't heading anything. I mean, there was somebody that was heading. So would you say, because the narrative we have out there is that, why would you name an international the gateway to the country after somebody who overthrew head of state or our foremost president? Because I mean, how can you do that? He betrayed. But looking at the history, the fact that there was pressure down the government and all of that, and also about the fact that there was one party system, and so nobody would be able to, Nkrumah would have ruled for a very long time. Would you say that Kotoka's overthrow and the NLC overthrow of Nkrumah wasn't a personal ambition but something to help the country?
I think that the reality is that every coup is predicated on personal ambition.
Right.
Every coup. The only thing is that the coup leaders try to launch on current circumstances that the people are feeling, so that when the coup is successful, they can say because of this and this and this. But every coup is predicated on personal feeling.
Right.
And if you read our history, not just Ghana, Nigeria, all the places where they have coups, the leader had a personal ambition and only wanted a certain timing so that he'll be able to gain acceptability when the coup is successful.
Right.
And so we may not know what personal ambition Kotoka had, but he certainly had a personal ambition. And you utilized the fact that and launched it on the economy and the economic challenges we were having. The fact that we're not happy people, the fact that people felt suppressed and oppressed, and then launched on that one. Same with Achampong, same with Jerry Rawlings, same with everybody else.
Next week on Beyond the Surface podcast.
The mistake was that because the government felt bad about his death, they tried to immortalize him by naming too many things after him.
Right.
Maybe on hindsight, one or two things would have been fine. I mean, for all that Akufo-Addo has done, I mean, Edward Akufo-Addo, we only have a roundabout named after him near the Togo Embassy in Cantonments. For all that Liman has done, we have one university named after him in the north. And so I think that we need to be a bit fair and balanced when we are eulogizing our people. And I think in the case of Kotoka, he certainly has to be eulogized as a hero of our country. But the issue is what
to do for him.
Exactly.
So are we justified by changing the international airport?
The name was Accra International Airport. I think that going back to Accra International Airport is fantastic. And we should find something else to name Kotoka after. I don't believe in naming and renaming and that will never get anywhere. There's a reason why something is named. Once it's named, it should stay like that.